Hello, I want to welcome everybody to this webinar this afternoon, depending on where it is you're joining us from. So thank you so much for making the time. As you all know, today we had purpose to be here today to discuss a very important topic within our business, which is partnerships. So today's topic is going to be about keeping everything in sight. How do you preserve partnerships and ecological responsibility through the COVID crisis? I will be the moderator for the session. My name is Talima Ibrahim. I am the head of content at Switch TV, which is a channel based in Kenya. And of course, joining me right now, I have our panelists who are already on the Zoom. I want to introduce Mr. Peter Limburg, who is the Director General at Deutsche Welle. We also have with us Mr. John Momo, who is the Chairman Channels TV in Nigeria. We also have Mrs. Tabe Bingham and Onchong, who is the Head of Department for TV Programming, Sierra TV in Cameroon. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for making the time this afternoon. And I do hope that the next hour will be a very, very insightful discussion as we try to basically just learn from each other. And for all the participants who are joining us from across the continent, I've seen so far we have over 110 attendees. That's such a good number. So thank you again for joining us. And I just want to remind you that if you have any questions at any point during the conversation, please feel free to make use of the Q&A section within your Zoom portal. So you can drop in any question that you may have, and feel free to also make it as pointed as possible to a particular panelist as we kickstart the discussion. But right now, let me invite Saiva from Dataxis. She's going to be giving us a market overview that I believe has some valuable insights. Saiva, over to you.
Thank you, Tamima. So let's start with a short market overview that will set the scene for today's conversation. First, a few elements of context. The sub-Saharan African territories comprise 46 countries, which represent together around 1 billion inhabitants in 2020, 230 million households, and about 41% of these households live in the cities. And 43 have access to electricity if we take the global number. So the population is relatively unequally distributed, as you can see on the map. And as for the countries examined today, Cameroon represents around 26 billion inhabitants, Kenya 53, and Nigeria 220, which makes it the largest country in terms of population in the region. And among the demographic characteristics that we can highlight, we count the fact that sub-Saharan Africa shows one of the fastest demographic growth on Earth, and the population is overall very young compared to other regions of the world. And here, if we have a look at the TV household structure, we see that around 41% of households have access to television in 2020. And this represents close to 100 million households. So it also means that the majority of households don't have a TV yet. And this number is expected to grow significantly in the coming years. We see that around 34% are subscribing to a pay TV package. So this makes sub-Saharan Africa a mainly free-to-air market in terms of television, even though pay TV services are slowly growing and gaining popularity. And the second chart illustrates the evolution of the reception of free TV channels by technology. So we see continuous growth of satellite TV reception, and this allows access to a large number of channels, even in remote areas. But the development of terrestrial television is also ongoing, and the technology is replacing analog terrestrial reception and should enable the expansion of free TV channel packages on a national scale, and also boost the channel's economy. Here we wanted to show some of the characteristics of the three countries that will, among others, be brought up during the conversation. So starting with Nigeria, so Nigeria, the most populated country in the region, shows large regional disparities, and we have around 50% of households that have access to television in 2020. We see a strong dominance of free reception. We can say that the digital migration has started. So a larger number of people have access to free-to-air channels. And local channels are also access to maybe an increased number of advertisers. It's also interesting to see that a growing part of the reception and the increase in free TV reception is taking place on satellite, where packages such as MyTV or more recently Our TV create value in the market. If we move to Kenya, in Kenya, the free reception is also thriving with a dynamic free-to-air market that includes the major local groups such as Standard Media, Nation Media Group, the broadcaster KBC, and Rural Media Services, for instance. The digital migration was completed in 2015, and it has allowed the terrestrial reception to reach a substantial number of households. And it's also the case on pay television, where the affordable DTT packages distributed through terrestrial television by MultiChoice and StarTimes mainly have attracted around 20% of TV households. And finally, we see that Cameroon has a TV penetration rate of around 66%. And the large share of pay TV hides, in fact, a particularity of the market, which is the widespread access to cable TV. Cable offers allows to receive a large number of channels for a limited price, and it's very developed in the country. And even if it's decreasing, this reception mode accounts for around 30% of TV households in 2020. Okay. And now this final slide brings us to look at the free TV market throughout the region. And we see that there are two sources of revenues for the channels in the region, advertising revenues and public funding. And today, as in the future, a significant share of the revenues are generated in South Africa, as the market is more developed and the standard of living might be higher, and the advertising market is more advanced. We can also see the impact of the pandemic on the channel's revenues, in particular the advertising revenues. And we see that the markets have been hit by the crisis, and the effect should last a couple of years before the revenues start growing again. So we wanted to show the evolution of over the next few years, where the household equipment and the development of free services should also drive the revenues, the channel's revenues upwards. Among the free-to-air players, alongside local public and private broadcasters, we find international news channels that are progressively embarking on the production of local content and the development of regional collaborative efforts. And for these particular points, I would like to give the floor to Tamima again.
Thank you so much for that, Saiva. I'm sure some very interesting insights right there, looking at our sub-Saharan television market. And there was a question here, someone asked whether this report would be available to you. So just to confirm that, yes, indeed, Dataxis will be sharing it all to all the participants. And so far, I'm happy to say that we have 158 participants so far in today's webinar. So let's jump straight right into it. Of course, our topic is keeping everything in sight. We are focusing on how to preserve partnerships and, of course, the ecological responsibility to the COVID crisis. And just to reintroduce our panelists today, we have Mr. Peter Limburg, who is the Director General at Deutsche Welle. We have Mr. John Momo, who is the Chairman at Channels TV in Nigeria, and Ms. Tabby Bingham, who is the Head of Department for TV Programming at Sierra TV in Cameroon. So I'm just going to give each of our panelists a brief moment to maybe just tell us what it is exactly that they do at the various organizations, then we can get the conversation started. So ladies first, let's start with you, Mrs. Tabe.
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone, to Peter, Tamima, and John. As you said, I'm the Head of Department for TV Programming. Basically, my work is to scout, first of all, for programs, to look for them wherever I can find. That is how I found myself DW. And then ensure that it is programmed in accordance with what the audience expects. So it is basically program acquisition and programming, and a little bit of production too recently. So I've been doing that since 2015.
Thank you for that. Over to you, Mr. John Momo.
Well, I am the chairman and chief executive of Channels Television, which is a free-to-air channel in Nigeria, the first news channel in the country. We started 25 years ago. I've been in broadcasting for over 4 decades, so it's a long time. We're news and current affairs based, and we have a lot to show for what for where we've come from. We are the most awarded television station on the continent, and indeed in Nigeria as well. 13 times out of 17 times crowned the best TV station in the country, and so we're keeping up with the challenges that COVID has thrusted on us.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Mr. Momo. Now over to you, Mr. Limburg.
Yeah, thanks again for the invitation. I'm Peter Limburg. I'm the Director General from Deutsche Welle for the last 7 years now. Deutsche Welle is Germany's foreign broadcaster. We reach about 250 million weekly users around the globe, and we have more than 3,000 people working for us, plus thousands of freelancers around the globe again. And we're quite happy to have so many partners around, especially in Africa. And without them, we couldn't do our job properly as we do it, I hope. And looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
So for sure, we're in very great company, and right now we are at 157 participants, and throughout the discussion, I want to remind everyone who's participating, if you feel free to ask any questions on anything that we'll be discussing, you can be as pointed as possible in terms of just letting me know which particular panelist you'd like to answer your question. So let's jump straight into it. Looking at the year that we've all had in broadcasting, and just going back to the insights that Saiva just gave us, obviously, if you look at the revenues, that's something that most businesses are grappling with this particular year. So in your own opinion, and this is to you, Mr. Limburg, why do you feel that today, more than ever, partnerships become very, very key within the media space?
I think a lot of our partners see the COVID problems directly into their budgets, and all the private companies have to get revenues. And we at Deutsche Welle, we are in a good position because we get public money. We're a public service broadcaster. So COVID had made us problems, but not on the revenue side. So I think it's natural that this is the moment to try to produce things together. And we have great experiences with co-productions, and I think we will talk also about the example of EcoAfrica later. But I think this is a real challenge now, and it's a necessity to make more programs together. And I think we all have good experiences with our partnerships.
Over to you, Mr. Momo, because just listening to the profile of your channel, it's very impressive. So in your opinion, do you believe that particularly in this media landscape, that partnerships are key, not just for today, but even for the future? Absolutely.
Partnerships like the icing on the cake for any business. If once you leverage on each other, particularly in the case of channels and the partners leveraging on a broadcaster like DW, then you're able to share values, you're able to learn from each other, you're able to imbibe some of the production cultures which they bring onto the table. And DW is a highly acclaimed and renowned international broadcaster. So it gives you, puts you on a pedestal that really makes you up the ante for your production works. So creating values, sharing production values, and learning from each other is one of the uptakes that you get from such a partnership. And then it helps also with costs. You spoke about dwindling advertising revenue. Indeed, that's happened because of the pandemic. Before we dive right into the discussion, it seemed as if DW and channels foresaw the pandemic before we went into partnership. And so it's more like deja vu for us. We're very, very happy with what we're doing. The only thing is that we have to learn from what COVID has brought upon us to see how we can improve on the partnership.
And I love that you've actually literally said that you guys were ahead of the game. And that's literally why every participant will be looking to understand, and especially from you, Mr. Limburg, how are you able to put together all these successful partnerships across the continent? So part of what we are trying to discuss today also involves ecological responsibility. And just to frame that bit of the conversation, what does ecological responsibility mean to your business? Over to you, Mr. Limburg.
I think it means a great deal because I think our viewers expect that we act ecologically responsible in everything we do, and it's a value of our company. And especially, I think it's a great topic which is strong in Germany and Europe, but has its effects on the whole world. I mean, Europe created a lot of ecological mess around in history and in the recent years. So I think there is a responsibility for us to do more and to help to educate people together with our partners. And I think what John said is really important. We learn from each other on these topics. We learn what is important for our viewers and users. I think this is the key thing, and we can only learn it due to a partnership. And with channels, for instance, we did this quite a long time ago, and we learned so much from them. And they're great colleagues, and I think vice versa. We now know our users very well, and we can really react fast on also on the COVID crisis.
Okay, and over to you, Mrs. Tabe. I'm very curious. Mr. Limburg just said something about ecological responsibility, and I know that here within sub-Saharan countries especially, most businesses might not necessarily prioritize that. So is that something that in your country is a key priority?
That's something that became a priority only about 2 or 3 years back when we started talking too much about climate change. Most people did not bother about the environment, and you would not find programs on the environment on most television channels or on radios. So many people didn't even understand why they need to bother about certain things. It's only in the past 3-4 years that we started experiencing some of the changes, because right now I'm not in my base, I'm not in Yaoundé, I'm in Douala, the economic capital of Cameroon, and normally in December it's unbearable. You cannot live in Douala because of the scorching heat, and the rains went right to November, something which is very abnormal in Cameroon. It was raining up to November, and people are just getting used to those changes. That's why it's very important for us to be conscious of the ecological changes, not just in Cameroon, but in the countries around us, because the things that happen in Chad, in Nigeria, which are closer to Cameroon, affect us too greatly. We experienced lots of floods this year. We experienced heavy rains, and now rains just stopped in November, but now there's just complete dryness, as if the rain stopped 3 months ago. So more and more people are becoming very conscious, and I think it is our role as the media to continue to put that in their minds, such that whenever they're planning not just the activities but their structures, they should know that one day you can get up and you don't find your house where it is. It would have been swept away by high water. So I think more and more we're getting conscious of that.
Okay, so over to you, Mr. Limburg, and I'm sure for a lot of our participants today, they must be wondering about DW's footprint on the continent. And what's your partnership footprint like at the moment? And still within the same breath, how are you able to plan and put together all these partnerships?
We have partners whom we co-produce, for instance, EcoAfrica. It's channels, TV and NTV in Uganda. They're anchoring it together. We have partners like the CRTV in Cameroon and ExCaf in Telecom in Senegal, with whom we co-produce the French version of EcoAfrica. And we now have also a partner in Mozambique, Soiko TV, and we started this during the pandemic, which wasn't so easy. but it worked because everybody wanted the program, and we have now experience on what is necessary, the technical side, and the most exciting thing I think is that we learn from each other also what kind of technical thing, what editorial grounds we have to share. I think this is the process, and this you can only do with these kind of partners which have the same attitude towards journalism. I mean, it's important that it's and it doesn't mean that we only do finger pointing journalism on this is not working well. We do constructive journalism. We try to find solutions, and we now have with EcoAfrica more than 50, I think it's 56 television stations in Africa airing this program. And this is amazing. It's more than Africa has countries. So this is something which we are a bit proud of, that it's really, and we reach millions of viewers on the continent. This is really great.
Okay, and maybe just to make sure that everybody's with us, I'm just going to request Shana, if you could just please play me the trailer for EcoAfrica, so that at least everyone on the panel can at least get a feel of what the program is, because the next bit of the conversation, we're just going to be focusing on how this show has been able to more or less, persevere the challenges of COVID-19, and even in spite of that, they've actually been able to launch the show in a new language. So Shana, please let me have the video.
EcoAfrica.
Wow.
Wow.
How great is that?
Here you get a clue what's really going on. EcoAfrica. Amazing environmental stories.
So as an engineer, my focus for the future, say 2 to 5 years from now, is actually to power Africa.
I'm actually an advocate of clean energy and waste management.
We need to stop this. Look at everywhere.
Our aim is not to go to clean the oceans, but our aim is to educate people not to dirt the ocean, not to pollute the ocean, not to spoil the ocean.
Now that's what I call smart.
We want our children to be problem solvers. We want them to be people who are able to look at the environment and not do things the usual way.
So going ahead to create the Green Girls organization was to put women and girls at the forefront as the solution providers to their problems.
EcoAfrica. The Environment magazine produced by DW, Channels TV and NTV.
So obviously a very fresh show there, magazine format. So over to you, Mr. Limburg. You mentioned that this show is currently broadcasting across 56 territories at the moment. And how many languages is it available in currently?
It's available in English, in French, and in Portuguese. So, and this is something we're quite happy with it.
And if you look at the nature of the content, was it delivered from DW? Was it a concept that came internally from DW, or was it a concept that you're able to come up together with in collaboration with your partners?
I think we had the idea together, Joe Momo and I, with our colleagues together, and sat down what would be a great topic, and environment jumped into our eyes. And I think the idea is to produce something on a very high technical and editorial standard. And if you see the trailers, I can show you also the videos are, the whole show is like this. It's not only a fancy trailer, and they're great stories, great pictures, great people talking. And this is, I think, the key, that you try to produce something exceptional, and that you have the people who understand each other. So Africans at channels or on TV, they understand how Europeans or Germans think when they produce, and the other way around also. And now they became a team. It's no longer that we decide what's on the story. No, it's a team decision. And this is, I think, great to create small teams who think alike across 2 continents.
And I love that, because that really is the true spirit of partnerships. And maybe over to you, Mr. Momo. What has been the reception to the program on your channel specifically?
It's been tremendous. It's been absolutely wonderful. You know, what COVID did was for us, it helped us to reset the button, to take a step back and say, hey, we're harming the environment. But then the DW Channels Partnership had been there producing EcoAfrica, which sort of created an avenue for the people to know what to do. So it was more of something ready-made for you to know where to go to. It was the go-to program for you to know how to treat your environment. And one of the things that I need to say, mention here is the fact that the DW Global Forum is a fantastic rendezvous of broadcasters, in the sense that that's where this whole thing was born. You know, we got talking. It's a place where ideas are born. So we sort of, you know, met, discussed this issue, and voila, it's a bullseye for us today. The environment is being taken seriously by people, but it's a long shot. These are early days. I think the more we reinforce the messages, the more people take the environment seriously. Personally, I have been one of those people who EcoAfrica had impacted on, because the issue of urban farming and trying to make sure that our waterways are clean has been uppermost in my mind ever since this production began.
Okay, and what about you, Mrs. Tabe? What has been the impact of the program in Cameroon?
I must say, when EcoAfrica started, we really did not have a program on the environment. CRTV is a national television. People produce programs, they come and go. A program can run for 2-3 months, and after that, they cannot withstand the cost and what it entails to do a production. So when EcoAfrica was introduced in 2017, it was the only program. In fact, that's why we received it so much with open hands, because that was the only program that we could boast of talking on the environment. And it was very welcome too, because of the format in which it was done, because with two presenters in different countries, in 2 different countries, and having reports from all over Africa, it was easy for us to be able to put a program together on the spot without moving. Because I'm sure one of the challenges television stations would have to produce programs on the environment is that they'll have to move from one place to the other. But we could sit on one spot and be able to get content and be able to look at life in other places other than Cameroon and even other than Africa, to be able to talk about environmental problems, to share the experience, to see how they are solving some of the problems and how we can make use of it. So EcoAfrica came not just for environmental issues, because it is equally able to show people that you might just be thinking that you're preserving the environment, but most of the things that are found in our environment that we do not need anymore, we see that in all the reports that we have people transforming them into some other thing. So it isn't just protecting the environment, it is giving another product of some of the things, and it is even encouraging a made in Cameroon, because when you look at people who use used tires of vehicles to make sofas for their homes, then you see people reinvent other things because they're trying to protect the environment. So it was very welcome when we started broadcasting in 2017. So we gave the population enough time to be able to watch it, because we're doing 3 times a week at different periods of the week. So the reception was very welcome. And to have 2 presenters talking to one another as if they were close yet very far apart from one another.
Okay, and I really want us to now focus on this, because if you're talking about partnerships, really this show embodies what benefits other businesses and stations across the continent can replicate. And what we've seen is that this one goes beyond just Africa. And I love that in the beginning, Mr. Limbogo said that the idea came in partnership. It wasn't just something that came from DW and everybody had to accept it. It was something that was developed in partnership. So now let's talk about quality. Because you really pointed this out, Mr. Limbogo, when you looked at the trailer, that looking at all the videos there, they're actually done in partnership with all the different broadcasters. So how does that really work from an ideation point of view to shooting to editing, so that by the time we're seeing the final product on air, it looks, there's a sense of uniformity and cohesion, despite the fact that it's being made across, different countries, different continents even. Over to you, Mr. Limburg.
Yes, it is. There is one editorial team, and it sits in Berlin, and it's connected with all our partners. And there's one guy, Thomas Mandelmeier, who is really dedicated, and he lives for EcoAfrica, and he really wants this to become a success, and he made it a success together with everybody. And I think he deserves the credit also, like Sevan Ibrahim Sauer, who is working to distribute it. So I just wanted to name the two. There's a lot of others, but I think it's important also to name them. But there are others who are really working on this. And the idea is to bring a lot of content from Africa and some of content also from Europe, and have a good mixture. And we get content from our partners and reports from our partners, but also we ask freelance teams to bring in content from wherever in Africa. So the good thing about it is also that when we go into and give freelance teams the chance to make reports, the topic is also getting higher and higher around the continent, because people see that you also in media can earn money with doing interesting reports about ecological solutions or sometimes problems. And I think this is something, but you need a dedicated team. And for us, it's important that it's not a side thing somewhere hidden in our organization. We still have this eco. No, it's a very high agenda. Where we really say this is very important for us because it's a strong pillar for the future. It's co-production and cooperation, and not only producing magazines or content and sending it out. This is also important for us, but co-production is the very fine art of international media in the future, I think.
And are there any financial elements to the co-production and cooperation?
Oh yeah, everybody puts money into it, because, for instance, the anchors they've been paid by the channels, and but we also, I think, have the biggest part of the financial contribution. But it's a high-class television magazine. It costs money, of course, and but it's worth it because we really get an intercontinental cooperative spirit into it. I like it, really.
Okay, let me hear from you, Mr. Momo, now as a partner channel. Then how are you able to make sure that you hold up your end of the partnership in terms of delivering content, which now goes into the bigger umbrella that is EcoAfrica?
Well, passion is everything, and passion in broadcasting means that, you live and work so much as if your life depends on it. That's what runs through the whole production team and the production process. Between channels, television, and DW and the production teams, there's mutual respect. There's communication all the time. And then, we're sharing ideas and knowing that this is the limit that we cannot go below. And this runs through because we have the same ethos, quality. Even where there's quantity, it has to be good quantity. So the content, good content, is at the core of the production team between both organizations. And as Peter said, we take care of our own bill. Of course, DW is a big partner, and so they take a large chunk. But we also make sure that we hold true to the ethos that are common between the two organizations. And in partnership, this is what makes it work. As long as there's communication, mutual respect, and us trying to live within the objectives of trying to strive at achieving the same objective, then things work out very well. So we make sure that the quality is kept clean and make sure that it's of high standards at all times.
And maybe over to you, Mrs. Tabe, because you touched on this earlier. You actually mentioned that in your channel, it has 3 slots, meaning there's original, repeat, and then another repeat. So obviously the program is getting value from your programming schedule. Yeah. But now for you as a channel, have you been able to contribute content to it so far?
First of all, the presenter works for our channel. And the channel has, I heard Peter mention that we have stringers all around the country who send in reports that come from Cameroon. And I must say there's no production in recent times since 2017 that has put us under pressure like EcoAfrica, because we program recordings every Fridays, and when we step out to do such recordings, we have to do for like 3 weeks so that we don't have to disturb Thomas every week to send feeds for editing and so on and so forth. So it has to be in bulk so that he does a package, and because we send recordings on Thursday and the program is on Saturday. So actually Thomas has just 1 day to package it to send back for broadcast on Saturday. So it has actually put us under pressure, and we have already adapted to that. And so we have content from Cameroon by Cameroonians, and also content from Kenya, from Nigeria, and so on and so forth. So there's content produced by us. And besides exploring it 3 times a week, we also explore it in smaller versions. We have our morning shows, for instance, which have slots on environment. So every day we take a report for the week, which we take out of the program EcoAfrica, and we use it as a report, environment report for the week on our morning shows. So we created lots of avenues. That is how we were able to get the population into the program. And it is only in those small bits and the numerous broadcasts that the population got used to it in very short a time. So since we're talking about the COVID season, we had to change from the 3 broadcasts to something else because we had to stop production sometime in March when everything was suspended. We stopped in March. But now EcoAfrica had to stay on the air because as at the time we were stopping, we already had over 180 programs that had been broadcast. So now we moved from a weekly programming to a daily programming. Why? Because we have 4 broadcast shifts. So those who missed it out in the morning can watch in the afternoon and they can watch in the night. So it became a daily programming because everybody was stuck at home. No one was going out. So we had to give more opportunities for people to watch it. For those who were not able to watch the weekly editions, they were now able to watch it during the day and every day. So some of them only discovered much of EcoAfrica in the past 5 months that they were at home.
And that's the great thing about good content, especially with the nature of this format, because it's an evergreen.
It's not time bound. So the content is relevant anytime.
Okay, and thank you for at least leading us into this next bit of this discussion. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Limburg. How has COVID especially affected this production? And generally, just looking at the type of partnerships you have across the continent, how have they been impacted with COVID-19?
Oh, well, it affected us at the beginning in March heavily because we had a very strict lockdown, and we couldn't really send people out to make new reports. So we had to stop the programming for I think 8 weeks, which gave us and our partners problems because they had to rerun it. But I heard from Tabea that you had made a daily program. That's even better. But I think we want to return to the weekly basis. But I think a lot of creativity came out. For instance, people went out and do the anchoring, not maybe in a natural resort or on the spot, but in their garden or before the door, and or in a shop round the corner. So I think this is something where creativity starts, and we found workarounds. It made the work quite difficult for coordination, but thanks to the digital possibilities which we have with Zoom and Teams and whatever, it works. It works now. It's possible, and so we made it. And I think also COVID was also a topic in our magazines. Producing masks with plastic, recycled plastic. So I think these topics are also into EcoAfrica.
Okay, and back to that, because looking at the nature of this production, I highly believe that if one platform was to set out to sort of like dare to do it as a solo project, anyone who is in production and programming, just the cost of it would be attainable. Literally, it would never have seen the light of day simply because it would have been too expensive. So in the context of that, and now if we go to the content, because you've mentioned that even in COVID, the content has shifted to be a bit more relevant to the context. So would you say, looking at the almost now 2 to 3 years that you've done the show, that perhaps there are bits of journalism that would never have been done, but thanks to this wonderful partnership, now you're seeing areas, stories, causes that would never have been given priority within the normal framework, that now because of this, not only are they getting produced, but they're also being distributed to a much wider and larger audience. Let's start with you, Mr. Momo.
Yes, indeed. What COVID has brought about is that it's impacted both negatively and positively. As Peter said, we had to leverage on technology. He mentioned Teams and he mentioned the Zoom, and so in trying to make sure that the program continues, we had to make use of that bit of technology. But as far as trying to get the impact on the positive bit was also the fact that even though people were restricted from going out, for instance, we were able to find out how people were coping with COVID and during the lockdown, because lockdown, if you're locked down, you're restricted from moving around. So this was very important for us to be able to dig deep into the way we do productions and to see what else we can bring to bear on the program, and it helped in creativity, in trying to bring out more ideas from within. As has been rightly said, it would cost a lot of money for you to be able to produce this program across board, on a continental level. But fancy a network of EcoAfrica at the same time. That's a huge network, and this is. But I left out part of the question. If you just remind me again, because I had that
basically,
in mind.
I'm trying to look at the journalism aspect of it, because I'm certainly sure that there are stories that have been done and probably won awards, because I understand that you've won awards at the Green Awards, you've won awards in Hamburg, in Ghana as well. And these are all stories touching on ecological responsibility, like e-waste, upcycling. So then probably to reframe the question, and this is now in the context of the partnership, because we have DW, which is an international media house, and then we have the local, channels, which, and again, we know in Africa that syndication is something that we've not been able to successfully do on the continent. Yet here, I can actually see a show that is successfully being syndicated on the continent and also out of the continent. So my question to each of you would be then, how do you maintain the curation of international resonance, taking into consideration that DW has an international audience, and at the same time, because it's airing across 56 territories in Africa, that it still has local resonance in that context? Let's start with you, Tabe.
And that was the fear of most of the people we're working with when we decided to engage in this partnership. I remember in a meeting, someone said, why are you going back to DW? DW is like 30 years old. And I remember as a child when it was still, we're getting something from Transtel, which was German. Everybody was like, okay, all of this is going to be foreign content. So why do you have to come back 30 years after to DW after you dropped Transtel many years back? And Mr. Momo talked about the Global Media Forum, which we had attended for some time, and discovered that DW was shifting from just sending content to Africa by getting Africa itself involved in the production of its content. So if you go to the offices of DW in Germany, in Berlin, in Bonn, you're going to see Africans working and making sure they are producing content for Africa, both French Africa and English Africa. So it is not like content which is sent to African countries for us to consume. It is made by Africans in the African context. So that is how we had to convince people to accept this partnership. The proof is that the work Cameroon is doing with Senegal all the reports that we have in that program, all the feeds that we have in the program come either from Nigeria, from Kenya, from South Africa, which I think the climate is not different from that of Cameroon. You can't talk about Nigeria and not talk about Cameroon. It is the same thing. You can't talk about Gabon and not talk about Cameroon. So they have not taken us from an environment which is very far from that of Cameroon. So we are within what is Cameroonian, because what affects Nigeria affects Cameroon and vice versa. So if you're talking about Cameroon, then you're basically talking about Kenya, you're talking about Uganda. So we do not have reports that come from Europe in the programs that are broadcast in the African continent. I don't know about the channels. I receive channels in Cameroon. Maybe I should tell you that in my house I have channels television.
That's good to know. That's good. Let me jump in right. Let me jump in right after you. It's good to know that.
That is it.
Yeah.
So that is it. So it's not content that is forced on us. It is our content. I'm always excited when I see reports on Cameroonians who are doing extraordinary things with waste. And I always ask myself, but where did Thomas get all of this from? It is because we have stringers all around the country and all around the continent that bring the stories of those young people who are making use of waste in doing things that can help them sustain their lives too, and at the same time protecting the environment. So it is something which was done, as Mr. Limbu said at the beginning, together. We did it together. DW did not serve it to us. Exactly.
Mr. Momo, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to jump right in there and just to say that, DW is the toast of international broadcasters around the world now, because it was a paradigm shift completely from dumping programs onto African broadcasters. From there, changing that paradigm shift to co-production. And yeah, this has made DW the toast of the international community, and they endear themselves to broadcasters around the world. And you must know that other broadcasters are imbibing, that kind of production value. So this is very important. And what it does to you is that we're able to give and take. Do what is relevant to your local communities and look at the best practices internationally, and you bring them into your program. So if you combine the two together, you're able to give the audience the best of all worlds, both worlds. And this is the best way to produce a program. And it's really, it's a bullseye for everybody. It's really hitting the real core of an impact of a good content.
And I think you have to say something, Mr. Limbo, because obviously, lots of compliments around how DW is just changing.
I'm humiliated. So thank you very much, Samir and John, for this great afternoon. No, but seriously, this is what we changed to go into co-production. And I think maybe one thought, also what's important for us is it is also aired on our global English channel. Because the target group is Africa, yes, but it's also interesting around the world what happens in Africa and what we can learn from Africa. I think this is, you can learn also in Latin America or in Asia about some great ideas. People make money with recycled goods, and there is so much creativity around this topic. Another thought is that we are quite happy to have some kind of a pan-African magazine here. It's because I think there is not such a strong pan-African media market when it comes to content. We have the same also phenomena in Europe, but this is a topic which interests everybody and where everybody can learn from each other. And I think to create these kind of programs is also very, very great to do it. But thank you again for the compliments.
Okay, so now let me involve our participants. Right now we are at 178 participants. Thank you all so much for making the time. I hope that we have earned the privilege of your time. So here we have a comment from Tiwalade Aderemi. You're saying, thank you so much for the opportunity. You've garnered a lot of insights. Happy to hear that. This is a question from Eric Dagbui to you, Mr. Limbog, who's asking, are there any plans of partnering with local stations in Ghana, since majority of the citizens in the country do not have access to satellite TV sets?
I think we have partners in Ghana. We're not co-producing in Ghana for the moment with Echo, but we are always open because there are great TV stations and media houses over there. We've been there recently, and it's always a pleasure there. And we have great projects, but I think there is no concrete EcoAfrica co-production.
Okay, and here another question to you, Mr. Limburg. Someone here asking, this is Fikayo Soretira. I hope I'm pronouncing the names wrong. You'll excuse me in case I get your name wrong. But to you, Mr. Limburg, are there any plans to partner with the governments in the nations of Africa, especially in the areas of creating laws that are eco-conscious?
This might not be our task. I mean, we are working mainly with private media together. Because it's fast and the decisions are easy to make. But we also have state television partners, not in every country, but I think we work through our program. I mean, and we're always happy if a government sees EcoAfrica, and they learn something. But it's not our task to go to governments and make them change the laws. This must come out of the country itself, I think.
And I think maybe just to you, Fikayo, I believe that most of our participants here are practitioners within the media space, and probably how we as Africans can actually just step up to the mantle with that is airing this program is a starting point, because then you're able to educate your audiences. And really, if you've been following the discussion for the last almost hour or so, you'll realize that this is solutions journalism at its best, because the show does not just pose problems, it also gives solutions to those problems, and local solutions from Africans. Because if you're talking about recycling in Kenya, for instance, chances are it's not too different from what's happening in Ghana or Nigeria or Cameroon. So another question here, this one is going to you, Mrs. Tabe. This is Ona Chiagozi from Nigeria. You're saying, Mrs. Tabe, please let me know on long-term partnerships, what happens if you and your partners reach a cul-de-sac or an irreconcilable difference on a fundamentally important issue? How then would the business be sustained? So, and this is to everyone. I'm sure it's not always been smooth. Just to answer that, there must have been a few instances where, you know, there were diverging opinions. So how were you able to overcome this in the spirit of just making sure that the partnership stays true to why you partnered in the first place?
Not for the content anyway. Maybe I give also part of the response for the other message you were reading to say, I work for public media. CRTV is state-owned media. So Mr. Limbu was saying it's very difficult. Most of the partners are private, but in Cameroon, they had the chance to work with the public media. And so far, no private media has EcoAfrica. But now, whenever there are issues, there are always issues in the partnership. That is why the partnerships are signed, so that everyone follows what the partnership says. Because one of the things that were very difficult for us to execute is the production specificities, not because we were resisting to it, because we were wondering how we were able to do it. So we had to make sure we get new equipment so that we can be able to meet the standards. I just heard Mr. Lewu say it is broadcast in 56 countries. And I'm not sure the program in French would have gone to the French countries if it was not well done. So it was a challenge that was given to us by DW to make us, okay, if you want to get into this partnership, this is the standard you should have if you want to go into the world market. And one other thing I quarreled a little with Svan at the beginning is that, you know, many people see Cameroon as French, but there's a lot of English too in Cameroon. I was like, I said, Svan, when do you start thinking of bringing what Mr. Mombo is doing to Nigeria so that we broadcast in Cameroon so that the English population too is able to benefit from it? I hope Mr. Limmo is going to take that into consideration and start thinking of bringing EcoAfrica in English to Cameroon. Why not?
Okay, and maybe Mr. Limbo, just to touch on that, how do you keep everyone happy? Because partnerships are about alignment and balance.
That's
so right. As the lead organization, how are you then able to maintain that consistently?
Well, first of all, to have a lot of contacts with our partners and the people who are producing and distributing the program have daily or weekly contact. So I think to talk and if there are problems, address them. And but when you once found the partner and you have this common understanding and again, it doesn't matter whether it's a private or a state-owned or public station. It doesn't matter, but you have to find this common ground. And when you have it, it's quite easy. You have daily problems to solve. Does the tape will be there in time? Will the file be ready at this hour? Are they coming too late? Is somebody sick? Or, I mean, you have all these daily production problems. But as far as I know, we didn't have any major editorial or other questions which made this cooperation impossible. We haven't been at this stage, as far as I know.
Okay, and just read a couple of comments here. Someone here asking to Mr. Momo, what was your major problem when it came to some of your long-term partnerships, and how did you solve the issues in the partnership? This is from Odame, Lisbon.
Well, for every partnership, there will be gray areas, usually on the onset, at the initial stage. Once you've taken care of all the legalese, once you get down to brass tacks of production, or any partnership for that matter, there has to be communication. But much more importantly, underlining that communication, there has to be transparency. And if you are dealing with people of integrity, then they respect each other, which will be mutual. And then they communicate at all times so that they can talk out and talk through problems. And then, of course, you have to be transparent. You know, this is what I'm doing, and everybody can see. With that kind of a system, you cannot be wrong. When tempers are high, everybody calms down, and you can have a common ground, as Peter said.
Okay, and this is a question, I guess, to everybody. We'll start with you, Tabe. This is from Kwas Achempong, who's asking, how strenuous has COVID-19 been on the financing? Has the partnership basically helped to ease it?
I'm sure you heard me say as early as March, we stopped production. But then we did not stop the execution of the partnership, because partnership is within a period. When you say 2 years renewable or 3 years renewable, this 5 months that we lost were within the partnership. So I'm sure DW lost a lot, and we too lost a lot, because the partnership was ongoing and yet we were not working. Even though those who were able to gather the information that they would need when we had to relaunch, because actually it's just in August that we relaunched the program again for the year. So imagine just how much has been lost since March, from March to August. So a lot was lost, and we cannot wind back time to say, okay, because we didn't work for 5 months, we should redo the partnership to make sure we involve the months that were lost. Those are all the risks when you get into a partnership. You do not foresee some of these things. Nobody saw COVID coming, but we had to live with it and make sure that, okay, COVID has come, but television didn't close down, because we must have realized that everywhere in the world closed down except television channels. We had to continue functioning because that was the only thing that even kept people at home. No one could stay at home if they didn't have television to watch. So it had a lot of impact on financing, and it had a lot of impact on even time, because as Mr. Limburg was saying, we couldn't just suspend, we had to produce content that was relevant for the period too, because the bulk of what we have to do in the management of COVID is much more environmental and ecological. It's not just in the hospitals, it is all about our environment. So they still had to continue work in some countries. So a lot was lost, but all wasn't lost, because we also gave a chance to people who did not watch the program in the past months to rediscover some of the things that had passed. So we're not regretting the time. On the contrary, we are instead happy about the partnership, because if we did not have this co-production, I must say, most of our productions were suspended, not just EcoAfrica. But since we had EcoAfrica in stock, we were able to do a new programming so that we can fill the air. So co-productions are generally an added value in any production house. You can never have everything that you need. You can't produce it. You need to get into partnerships.
Okay, and a final question here. This is from EDM in Gambia, and this is to you, Mr. Limburg. How does DW intend to sustain this initiative in the post-COVID-19 era? And can we extend this beyond just the pandemic? And maybe just to touch on that, I think Mr. Momo put it very well that this partnership was there before COVID, and they literally hit the bullseye. So probably, Mr. Limbo, are there ways that, in your opinion, you see now that through COVID and post-COVID that the partnerships are going to evolve?
I think, first of all, I think the eco topic will remain also after COVID, and after COVID is unfortunately, it takes a bit of time when we can start talking of after COVID. But I think also another topic is a great possibility for co-production. It's health, and what we probably will try to do is also have something like a health magazine being co-produced. I think this COVID showed us again how important health is in our world, and maybe this is then the next big thing for us. Hopefully, we'll see.
Okay. And so I think really just as we wind up, so many questions, I might not have the opportunity to take your questions, but I'm sure that Dataxis in one way or another will try to encourage our panelists, if they can, to answer some of the questions directly to our participants. Then here, a good question, I believe, basically just touching on the digital aspect of the show. So someone here asking, how can young talents leverage EcoAfrica to make money or start a digital media business? What are the lessons from EcoAfrica for young Africa? Maybe let me start with you, Mr. Bay.
I discovered there are many young people I've discovered through the program EcoAfrica who are doing just wonderful things with waste, as I said before. Secondly, you heard Mr. Limbo announce that you can be a stringer for EcoAfrica. If you tell me in Cameroon that you can be able to produce a report every week or every month, you'll be paid for that. So you can make money either by contributing, by making us discover some young person somewhere who is able to do something to preserve the environment or to give value to our trash or to our waste, and you make money out of it. And you could equally make money if you show up as one of those young people, because some of those young people that were profiled or that were talked about in most of the programs came up on their own because they watched the program and they tried to find out, how can I be part of this program? And that is how the reporter who goes around Cameroon was able to get most of them. So you can make money by producing reports. You can make money by scouting for reports for the main focal points for EcoAfrica in Cameroon and wherever you are. So because we cannot be everywhere at the same time, we need to have people in the north, south, east, and west who could just have a job scouting for content for the program, and that can give you some money.
Okay, and this one finally to John Momo, a very relevant question. This is coming from Sirandu Jane, who's asking to John Momo, coming from a nation where press freedom is limited, as we can see from recent times, how does this affect your partnership and of course the standards in news delivery? This is a question from Anox Media in Gambia. Have you had instances perhaps in the partnerships where a story that has been done for a particular country has had political implications?
Not that I know of. Even if that had come about and we believe that it was a story to be aired, we will air and damn the consequences. We're known to be, very, very vocal when it comes to issues that we have to put out there for the people to know. It's the right of the people to know. And recently, covering the NSAS protest, we were fined by our regulator for actually showing some visuals because we took a source which was from DJ Switch through an Instagram live reporting on the ground. The regulator was not happy with that. The same thing that was done by CNN, which has pitched them against CNN now. But we've always told the regulator that we haven't done anything wrong. We did the right thing. Well, it was the right of the people to know what was happening at the Lekki toll gate, and we did our job as professionally as we could do it. And so there hasn't been any issue regarding EcoAfrica. There might come up an issue someday if we hit hard at something that government is not doing right. Government sometimes doesn't want to hear the truth, but it's our duty to speak truth to government at all times.
Okay, and I'm seeing from a lot of the questions coming in, and this is to you, Mr. Limburg, a lot of people interested in how they could perhaps get in touch with DW to have this particular program and other programs from DW on their channels. So perhaps if you could advise on the best way they could go about it.
Yeah, we have a wonderful colleague. She's Sevan Ibrahim Sauer, and she is responsible for distribution in Africa. And I'm sure you will find her on our online. You will find her quickly, and you can do proposals. And we are willing to share this program with partners who have contract with us and share the values. I think this is important.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Limburg. So just look through the questions. So just the final question as we wind up. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists, perhaps as we wind up, if you could inspire the rest of us with a parting shot on what your vision is for partnerships on the continent, and of course also ecological responsibility for us working within the media industry. So the final question here is again to Mr. Limburg from Solok Sodex. Challenges for DW and its partners in co-producing these contents for EcoAfrica. So what are some of the challenges DW and its partners encounter in co-producing these contents for EcoAfrica? That's to you, Mr. Limburg.
I think it's the normal challenges we have in journalism. I mean, there's no special challenges, especially for producing this. The challenge is the day-to-day business and the communication to keep it alive, and to have the right people doing this. I think we have more chances than challenges in this program, and we have trust. This is important, and we are all convinced that this is a topic which is so important for everybody around the globe, and especially in Europe and Africa, that it's worth working hard, and it's hard work, but journalism, good journalism is always hard work.
Okay, super. So in the spirit of partnerships, so starting with you, Mrs. Tabe, what would you say is your vision when it comes to looking at the continent and the role of partnerships in particular? And I would be curious to sort of like ignite a flame. Is there a partnership in future between channels and CRTV?
Why not? CRTV began 2 years ago, a news channel, solid news channel. So it maybe will be important for us to have a news too from Nigeria. But so far, we only have AFP and the rest who really do not bring us content from Africa. So why not with channels television? But as far as partnerships are concerned, that is the only way television can be sustainable. You cannot produce all that which you need, especially when you're broadcasting 24/24. Or you're running 3 channels like the CRTV is doing. We have a news channel, a sports channel, and then a generalist channel that has to take everything, environment, health, politics, sports, and so on and so forth. It is only through partnerships that we can survive. So partnerships like that with DW, which is not just EcoAfrica, we do have many other programs which we get, programs for children, programs for youths through this partnership. That is the only way we can sustain the television and make sure we have content for just every group of person, which is relevant, not just for them, but for the African continent. So there's a bright future for partnerships, and it will depend on how it is done. And DW has started on a good foot with co-productions, which I think that will be the only way it will be more acceptable in Africa, if they can have co-production with different structures, just like we're doing with the DW. So we need it, and we're going to need it a lot more in the future.
Over to you, Mr. Momo, any parting words?
Yes, indeed. So perhaps this will be one of those few places where an agreement is consummated informally between CRT and channels. I dare say that we'll be willing to work with CRT in terms of news reportage, covering the Cameroon state for us, and we're covering Nigeria for them, so we can work, which is one of the spin-offs from the partnership that we have with DW. It opens a vista of opportunities for everybody. And I just want to say that, look, broadcasters are not absolved from the blame of making sure that the environment is clean, because we have e-wastes and we have our batteries. we have so many things that we throw away. So we must make sure that it's our responsibility to make sure that those are properly disposed of when they come to the end of their life, you know. And for anybody out there who is looking for a partnership, partnerships work. You know, they're very, very important. And in this COVID period and post-COVID period, it's better for you to look how best you can get a partner to work with. And if you really want to work with DW and the other channels, come on board. And I'm sure Peter is amenable to this.
Oh, yes.
Okay, finally,
thank you.
Mr. Limburg.
Yes, thank you very much. And just one information in the chat, you see now the address, also how to reach Sevan Ibrahim Sawa if you want more contact on these partnerships. We're open for more partnerships, and I really thank the partners we're just discussing here with, but I also thank NTV in Uganda and EcoAfrica in Senegal, because they're also doing a great job. And the good thing, and I'm really happy, is that this kind of partnership, co-producing, also opens the way to new partnerships among African channels. So we did something good, I think, with the whole thing. Thanks very much. And thanks to you, Tamir. Really great anchoring this show. It was really good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very
Thank you so
constructive.
much, Mr. Limburg.
Thank you, absolutely. It was great. Managing the time perfectly.
I'm going to steal her away from our station, definitely.
Thank you so much for that. And of course, thank you so much to all the participants. 100, at some point, we're at 175. So thank you so much. I hope that you have learned so much. And again, thank you so much to DW, Dataxis, you know, Tabe, Mr. Momo, for just making the time today. And I really do hope that from our discussion here today, we will see some partnerships that will be inspired. Someone will sit somewhere and say, you know, we worked together after sitting in a webinar where some ladies and gentlemen were telling us that Africa has the potential to actually, you know, create programs that serve our audiences in a way that we are offering solutions. So again, congratulations to you, Mr. Limburg. What you're doing here obviously is a first on the continent. And just to reiterate what he said, if you want to reach out to the DW team, go over to the chat section. There is a link that has been put there. In case you missed that, feel free to reach out to the Dataxis team, Shana and team. I'm sure they'll give you the specific contacts of who you need to talk to at DW to get the partnership started in terms of even just airing any of their programs. Well, that's it from me. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And I really do hope we've earned the privilege of your time. We've done this in 1 hour, 15 minutes. So I guess we can call it a day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.